What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show for your early morning entertainment. The 49ers are off today, but we are here for you to take a look back at the previous days of training camp. The 49ers had 3 days, and then they were off for a day, and then they did another 3 days. And so we're on one of those off days. But hopefully it's going to be a good rest day and a recovery day because they do have some guys who are out. I am your host, Marc Adams. You can find me at 49ers Camelot. I'm joined by my co-host, Anthony Robertson of 49ers Cutback. Ant, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing really good. And, you're right. We have finished now 2 blocks of training camp, and that means they're in full pads. That was one of the cool things is Monday they got in pads. And so now you're starting to see guys kind of separate themselves and start making some plays. You got some physicality being displayed. And this is when it becomes actual competition. When you're out there in shirts and helmets and you can see how people are doing things, but this is when you find out who's got that little bit extra. And so I'm excited about this. It also means we're about a week away from the joint practices with the Denver Broncos, and we know how important those things are. So it's full go, full, hit the NOS button. It's time for the season, which I'm excited about because it's going to be tomorrow. NFL football is back with the preseason debut tomorrow. So it's here, guys. We finally made it.
Yeah, and tomorrow, this is the Hall of Fame game. The Cowboys are in that, right?
It is the Chargers and the Lions, I believe.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's where I was going. I forgot. I know that Trey Lance is starting, so he's starting for Jim Harbaugh's Chargers. I just for some reason was thinking Cowboys, but who cares about them? We don't want to talk about them. But I'm interested to see how Trey Lance does. I'm rooting for the guy. I mean, I don't want him to become better than Brock Purdy or to win a Super Bowl before Brock Purdy, because then that's going to be a problem for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. But that's a long ways off if it ever even remotely happens. So not really concerned about that. Let's jump in. We've got a lot of guys and gals in the chat here. So thanks everybody for joining us live. And for those that are listening or watching later, we thank you as well for joining us. We appreciate that. So let's jump in. Right out of the gate, within the first 5 minutes, and I'm exaggerating, but I do think it was like within the first 30 minutes or so, Jacob Cowing left with a hamstring injury, very first part of training camp. How does that happen? I mean, obviously I don't expect you to be some kind of doctor or anything here, but you are a coach. And so if a guy looks great all off season, he came into the off season program really in shape, looking good. How do you come into training camp and pull a hamstring right off the bat?
It's tough these days. It feels like soft tissue injuries are becoming more, predominant. I mean, people are just getting injured left and right. And I think it's these guys pushing themselves to the limit. They're going out there and they're working as hard as they can. And Jacob Cowing has a lot to prove. And he knew that, and the team knew that, and they were counting on him to step up. And I think he probably just pushed himself a little too hard, a little overworked. And when he got out there in time for training camp, it just something gave. There's a different energy, a different intensity when you get out there and you're not just doing drills, but now you're doing something with the team. As somebody who played and then also coached, you can feel a different intensity when you're lining up with your teammates. And sometimes you push it just a little bit harder and something gives. I think it's real unfortunate that he suffered the injury, but I think that these are now going to be commonplace in the NFL. I really do. You've got guys who are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been before, plyometrics training, pushing themselves to the limits, and you're just going to have things that happen. It's unfortunate, but the good news is Cowing is only a few weeks away from coming back. It wasn't a severe hamstring pull, which means he's going to be in the mix, and he's going to be back for that Raiders week. Hopefully he gets joint practices. Then we can kind of get an idea of where he's at, but they were very excited about him, and I was excited to see him, and I didn't get to see him, so I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, and he really needs this because last year he really was only used on as a punt returner. Now, he did play on offense some, had that big like 50-yard catch. I don't even remember what game that was, but so he did a little bit last year, but he really needed to have a good training camp, and hopefully he still can from here on out when he comes back. He's not the only one out with a hamstring. Jauan Jennings has been out. Still not really sure how long that's going to be or how bad this was. Ricky Pearsall did not practice on Tuesday. They say that it was a planned rest day. So hopefully that's all that is going on with him. Is it time to start worrying about this position group, or is it just way too early to be that concerned? Because we still don't know what's going to happen with Demarcus Robinson. We all know about Brandon Ayuk. So where are we at? I mean, we had, and I want to get to this a little bit later, but there's been a couple of rookie wide receivers that have flashed a little bit in training camp. So where are you at on the worry radar with the wide receiver group?
I think I have a marginal, a marginal worry scale right now. I think Jauan Jennings, it's a calf, and he's been dealing with this calf injury all throughout OTAs, and they thought he was right, and then something didn't feel quite right. And so yesterday, Clay Kubiak did say it's day to day, and that's always a good prognosis, because if it's week to week, he's going to be out for a little while. So they need to be smart with Jauan. It's really early in training camp. And I think that he doesn't really need preseason games. He doesn't really need all these practices like everybody else because of how long he's been doing it.
Yeah.
But I think I have some concern with what happens at wide receiver 3. And we do have some veterans stepping up. I got to give Russell Gage his flowers. He has looked phenomenal. He has done a very good job. You can just see that he's got the veteran poise. He's going out there, running good routes, catching the football, not putting anything on the ground, and just doing everything that Kyle Shanahan and the offense is asking him to do. And they needed that, because they needed guys like Jordan Watkins and Isaiah Nair to be able to kind of work themselves in. And so what we're seeing is some of those veterans do that. And Inquiminius St. Brown is another guy that when I was at training camp, I saw look really good. I was surprised. I think he's past Isaiah Hodgins on the depth chart already. He just looks comfortable in the offense. He makes plays. He's in the right positions. So I do feel like the 49ers added some depth that are going to kind of stabilize the end of the depth chart, but they've got some guys that need to step up. Jordan Watkins really needs to make plays for this football team, and hopefully Jacob Cowing can get out there and do some things as well to kind of take this offense to the next level. But make no mistake, as long as Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall are good to go, and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey are good to go week 1, this offense is going to be just fine.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that about St. Brown, because I from what I've heard, he can't catch anything, but what you saw was positive.
Yeah, I've seen good things, and that's one of I thought all the wide receivers really did a good job. We didn't see drops. We seen guys going out there and making plays, and that's good news. I mean, that means they're getting the little things, taken care of. And this is one of the things I was hoping, especially for the young players, is that as the game slows down, because they understand the install and the offense, that things aren't too big. Now they're not thinking. Now they're going out there and reacting and making plays. I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, Watkins had the explosive yesterday. Nair had the explosive last week. I seen some of the running backs. Jordan James went on a wheel route, and he got a big-time touchdown catch as well. So these guys are all making plays right now, and that's exactly what the 49ers were hoping. And it's a little bit different look. I kind of expressed this yesterday. I did a video for Patreon, and I expressed that it's a different look without Deebo Samuel, but the wide receivers are running like crisp routes, right? And normally you have to scheme things up to get guys open. These guys can win one-on-ones, and that's fun to watch at training camp right now. Anyone can catch the ball at any time, and Brock will throw it to anyone at any time, and it's nice to see.
So regarding Jordan Watkins, do you think that he can make a decent impact this season? And regarding Isaiah Nair, do you think that he can make the team?
I think that Jordan Watkins can make an impact. I think early in the season, he's probably going to be more situational depending on injuries. If Jennings isn't back, he's going to be called upon to do more. But I think key veterans are going to help as well. But it's going to be Watkins stretching the field. And he's really good over the middle, too. There was a play on Monday. Brock Purdy rolled to the right to escape the pocket, and he throws back across the field. And Watkins comes out of nowhere and grabs the football and takes off running. And it was like, wow, look at that catch radius. Look what this guy does. And that was something I was hoping to see, how these young guys were going to operate in space. And I was watching him. I was watching Junior Bergen, seeing what they did with the ball in their hands. I thought Watkins did really good. As far as Nair goes, Nair's size and speed is just different. And there's going to be practices where he doesn't have big-time catch numbers. But I remember that coaches are watching every single player, every single play, and they don't care if you catch the ball. They want to see you do the right things. And I seen Isaiah Nair open a lot, and Tanner Mordecai just wasn't throwing him the football. So I do think that there's some opportunities. Nair looks further along than guys like Tariq Owens and some of those guys like Malik Knowles. I think he's got a shot to make this team now, which I was a little on the fence about probably, a week or so before training camp. But, whenever you see a guy that big that can operate the way he does, there's a chance.
What have you seen from Tariq Owens? What have you seen from Junior Bergen as a receiver?
I saw Bergen make a couple of plays when I was there, which was kind of nice. But what I didn't see was what I was hoping I would see, is the yak afterwards. He made the catch, and then he was quick to get taken down. In fact, the second catch that he had, he turned up the right sideline, and out of nowhere, here came Marquis Siegel and just lit him up. I mean, just threw a shoulder, and Bergen is small, and he just went flying. And I was like, ooh. That was kind of like, but it was nice to see Bergen getting involved in the offense. He doesn't look out of touch. He doesn't look out of sorts. He looks like he understands where he's supposed to be. He looks like an NFL receiver. I just don't know where he fits on this depth chart. I would have him pretty low right now. And so I'm not sure where he's going to sit. And with Tariq Owens, honestly, he's falling behind because these other guys are kind of stepping up and making plays. And Tariq's not really getting out there and making too many things happen. His route running, some of that stuff is better. But right now he's kind of lost in the mix. And I'm wondering if we get into joint practice preseason, he can make something happen. If not, he's going to be on the outside looking in again.
Interesting. Filthy Casual asks, will the 49ers have better separation this season?
I think so. I think when you look at Ricky Pearsall, Jauan Jennings, they can create natural separation. Demarcus Robinson, I don't know if people are singing his praises enough. This guy looks good. He creates separation all day. He finds open spots and zones. He just makes plays. He is a professional wide receiver. That's the best way I can explain it. When I watch him, he just does everything right. And I think that he's going to be a real target for Brock Purdy whenever he comes back from suspension or however that works out. He has looked really good. And other guys are kind of subtle with it, right? Russell Gage can find space, Jordan Watkins. So I think the 49ers have found guys that can now create separation, and you combine that with what Kyle already does to create separation for his guys, and it's big. But the route running is definitely something that's fun to watch. And the releases, we got guys who can get off the ball and beat press man, which I think has been a little bit of a problem for the 49ers in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in that last Super Bowl. Okay, so heard a lot of good things about Alfred Collins before the pads came on. I haven't heard as much about him since. Is that a coincidence? Is he just more of a work in progress kind of player? And what did you see with Alfred Collins when you were there?
Alfred Collins is figuring out how to play in the 49ers defensive front. So they're asking him to play a different role than he played in college. This is one of the bigger transitions, for a defensive player. Mikael Williams is dealing with it some, going from a 4-eye to a wide 9, and you can tell when he's inside rushing, he looks a lot different than when he's outside in the wide 9 in space. But Alfred Collins is dealing with that as well. I was sitting right there by the defensive line, so I got a good look at everything they were doing. And Chris Kasarik got on Alfred Collins. He got on CJ West a lot because they were working on taking on traps and following pullers, or when it was time to get vertical and get after the passer. And they were having a little bit of problems with that because these guys have been two-gappers, not penetrators in their career. So we're seeing an adjustment from these guys. But what we're seeing is these dudes are big, physical, and have some of the strongest hands. Right now, CJ West is impressing the most. because he's winning in one-on-ones, right? This is the thing that people pay attention to is one-on-one pass rush reps, and CJ West is doing a great job. When you're going to hear more about Alfred Collins is when we get into games, preseason games, and all of a sudden he studs up a defensive or offensive tackle, gets in the backfield and makes a huge stop against the run. Then people will take notice. So right now, people aren't noticing the front seven work he's doing, but he's doing all right. It's going to take a little bit of adjustment period, but once he figures this thing out, him and CJ West are going to be problems on the inside. It's a good thing for the 49ers. Alfred Collins just needs a little bit of time to breathe, and he's going to get there.
CJ West has been blowing people up. I've seen videos of some of the things that he's done to some of those offensive linemen. Even Dominic Pooney, he got the better of him. Did you like what you saw from him? And it could we possibly see 3 rookies starting on the defensive line?
I don't want to say that's not going to happen because that is a potential situation. They could have CJ West and Alfred Collins, especially on early downs, because they're such good run stoppers. And so this is going to be something to watch. And you're right, CJ West, he's killing the backup centers, especially for the 49ers. Or even some of the guys playing guard. But Drew Moss, he's struggling. Drake Nugent, no comparison. Like, these dudes are getting blown up. And CJ West, like you said, is doing it against guys like Dominic Pooney. He's making them compete. Now, one thing interesting in this whole process is CJ West has been doing that to Dom Pooney, who should be the 49ers' best interior pass protector, but he's not doing that to Nick Zakelj. In the reps that I watched, Nick Zakelj anchored pretty well against him, which goes to illustrate, once again, Zakel's great pass blocking, still working on the run blocking, but it's just an interesting dynamic. But West is going to be a lot of fun for people. I say that he's a lot like DJ Jones when it comes to the way he operates, plays low, has to use the tools that he has. But I think he's a little bit more dynamic in the pass rush than DJ Jones. And so I think that that's going to be an element the 49ers can add. So, yeah, I'm very excited about him. He was looking phenomenal going through drills. They got something there with CJ West.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Phil the Casual asks, how's Brindle looking in one-on-ones?
He's not doing a lot of one-on-ones. He's doing it very sporadically. But, he's looking like Jake Brendel. There are moments he's going to win. There's moments he's going to lose. And I was very interested to see him going against Alfred Collins and CJ West and these big guys who have the strength and speed combo, because he can handle speed rushers. He can handle guys that can move laterally. That's one of his strengths, Jake Brendel's. His strength is not handling somebody who can walk him back into the quarterback. That's still the problem for him. But he hasn't been going through as many one-on-ones as everybody else. They've kind of kept him out of it for the most part. He goes through it here and there, but it's not great, but it's not bad either. It's basically Jake Brendel-esque.
I was going to ask, since you were at training camp on Monday, I was really curious what you thought about Mykel Williams. But man, maybe the bigger news is that he missed yesterday's practice with what the 49ers called a minor ankle injury. I think he dealt with an ankle last year, I believe. So let me ask this in 2 parts. One, any concern about the ankle? And 2, how did he look on Monday?
He looked fantastic. You can tell that he's a rookie because he's still learning, but you can see it right now. Like the wheels are spinning and he goes in there. He gets some good reps. Some of the techniques that he's going ahead and using right now is phenomenal. You see the strength. He had Trent Williams on skates on a couple of plays. He's definitely got something there. And he's interesting because the 49ers have 3 different kinds of defensive ends. You have Bryce Huff, who wins everything on speed, and he looks phenomenal too, by the way. You got Bosa, that's the technician. He just does everything right. And then you got Mykel Williams, who is this raw physical freak who kind of uses his strength to kind of move people around. And he's not even all the way there with technique yet, but you can see he's going to have some big plays for the 49ers this year. I thought he looked really good. I do believe I saw him twist his ankle. I saw him kind of slip down. He did go through practice, though, and finish practice. And that's what he did at Georgia. He played with a sprained ankle the whole time. I don't know if it's the same ankle that he injured, but it's something to monitor. I'm not too concerned about it right now. But if this thing lingers, then yeah, it could be a cause for concern. And the 49ers need him. And boy, does he look good. I mean, he looks really fun. And the sheer size of some of the guys the 49ers added, size and speed, it's crazy. I just kept pointing at Mykal Williams like that guy is a monster. He makes guys like Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff look small, and those are not small people.
So Reese in the chat asked, there's so much riding on this rookie class. It's scary. Hope they all ball out. How's Martin looking? So that was one of the questions I wanted to ask, is what you've seen about Nick Martin. And we'll just segue to this because it sounds like Dee Winters is really, at least for now, winning that linebacker 2 battle. He's all over the place. He's hitting people even when he's not supposed to, kind of reminiscent of Dre Greenlaw, picking off passes. So right now, Dee Winters sounds like he is the leader in the clubhouse. Now, a lot can change, but at least for now. How's Nick Martin looking? I mean, is this competition really swaying toward Dee Winters, or is Nick Martin practicing well enough that he still could pull this out?
Nick Martin is kind of like Alfred Collins. He's figuring this thing out. I was watching linebacker individuals, and he was having like a couple of footwork problems. And it's not just him. It's other young players as well. You know, Stone Blanton and some of these guys, they're figuring out the footwork. I will say this about Martin, though. Once they coach him up on it, he does it right. So he's one of those guys that's learning. And as he figures it out, you can see his game is going to pick up. But right now, when he's out there in 11-on-11 situations, you can tell there's a lot of thinking. Okay, I'm supposed to go here. Okay, I'm supposed to do this. He's not just doing it yet. And when he's able to just do it and go out there and just operate, understanding what the offense is doing and the different looks, that's when his speed is really going to take off. And that's been one of the most important things that I've seen from Dee Winters is this dude made a play, and it was the most impressive play to me. It wasn't the interceptions. It wasn't the highlight plays. There was one play where Garendo was running an outside zone to the left. And when Garendo bounced it out, I thought, oh my gosh, Garendo's going to run forever. And out of nowhere, Dee Winters came, and it was because he had great footwork, and he came downhill, and he got right to the right spot, and he stuffed Garendo in the backfield for a 1-yard loss. And when you got a guy that runs 4.3, and you come from your linebacker spot and get there on an outside zone that should be a big play, it's one of those plays you take notice of. And as someone that coached linebackers for a while, I'm like pointing at it like, that's it right there. That's how you play linebacker. And I thought he's done a very good job. So I think Dee Winters has put a little bit of distance between him and Nick Martin. But I think that Nick Martin has an opportunity still to compete for that Sam linebacker job. The 49ers are trying to figure that out. Right now, it's been a lot of Luke Gifford. So we'll see where they go with Sam linebacker. But we knew that Nick Martin was going to be the backup will and, you know, kind of work his way in. And then eventually maybe he could do what Winters did last year and kind of slide over to Sam and start there. But I do believe Dee Winters is going to be the starting will linebacker when they play Seattle week 1.
Yeah, Nick Martin needs to be ready regardless because Dee Winters has missed plenty of time. So if that trend continues, then definitely Nick Martin's going to be called upon. But I'm excited to hear how well Dee Winters is playing. One guy that has received rave reviews so far is Upton Stout. What did you see from him? What have you heard from him? Sounds like he's, you know, we don't expect a rookie to play that nickel corner. And of course, this is training camp, it's practice. It's not, we're not talking in the words of Allen Iverson, we're not talking about a game. We're talking about practice. And so we haven't seen him do that in real life, but he's doing it against the 49ers on the field. What have you seen from him? Is this is he the real deal?
He's a dog, you know, and we knew he had those dog-like qualities coming out of college. He was aggressive. He was one of those guys that flew around, made plays, let you know that he made plays. It kind of gave you Demo type vibes. What we're seeing out there is a guy that he wants every single challenge. He wants to line up against the very best. When Ricky Pearsall went into the slot, and everyone's probably seen the video now of Upton Stout making that play on Ricky Pearsall, The great thing is I was watching that play as it happened, and I happened to be focused on Stout. I got lucky. It's hard to focus on everyone, but I got lucky focused on him that play. And he was so good with the way he dropped and then being able to change direction and really drive on that football. And then the ability to get up over the top and around Pearsall where it wasn't going to be a penalty. One of the things I see from a lot of the young corners a lot of times is they like to grab and pull. You don't see that from Upton Stout. He doesn't have to do that because his change of direction is so good. And he does have a really good understanding of route concepts. So sometimes he runs the routes for these guys. He's a film study guy. There's only one way to know that is by seeing what he does on out there in the game or at practice. He's doing such a good job. I'm a very big fan of Upton Stout. I don't know if he's going to start, but I think he's right there in competition with Trey Brown. And right now, Trey Brown has been doing good when he's in the nickel, but he's been asked to play a lot on the outside with injuries to Renardo Green, Demo getting a little bit more time off as they kind of monitor him as the practices have been going. It's given opportunities up to Stout. He's got a real shot to start. This dude, he's fun. He's going to be somebody that people enjoy. If you liked K'Wan Williams, think about K'Wan Williams with more bite. That's what this guy is. He is zero fear. I really like him. He's a lot of fun.
More bite than a shark? Wow.
Yeah. Maybe he's like a great white, you know?
or a megalodon or whatever they call that thing. Okay, let me get to this question from Joe before I move any farther. Guys, how do you think it affects the team when Mustafa and Ayuk come back? I mean, you just don't know when a guy comes back from a knee injury, especially that first year, what he's going to look like. I wouldn't expect Ayuk to look like 2023 Brandon Ayuk. But I do think that it's going to help the offense. Malik Mustafa, I think, is more – his game's not as speed predicated. And so I think that he can probably still make a big impact and look closer to himself than maybe Brandon Ayuk early on. But again, it's hard to say with knee injuries.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is the significance of the injuries. Brandon Ayuk's knee injury was much more significant than Malik Mustafa's. Yeah. His was a clean tear. He's done this before. It's on a knee that he injured before with an ACL. So there is an opportunity for him to come back and look closer, like you said, to normal Malik Mustafa. As long as the 49ers give it time, you can come back from this. We've seen Talanoa Hufanga coming back from an ACL. I wouldn't say it looked as good as his all-pro year, but he was able to go change direction and do all those things. That's the one part I worry about Brandon Ayuk. His game is built on creating separation, and being able to get in and out of his breaks with that knee. What is that going to look like? How long is it going to take for him to kind of get back to Brandon Ayuk? But just him out there alone is going to get the attention of defenses. So that could open some things up for some other guys. But I think Malik Mustafa is probably going to make the quicker impact for the 49ers. And I don't know what the safety room is going to look like. I mean, early it's probably going to be Jason Pennick and Jair Brown, but they would love to have Malik Mustafa out there because he's a heat-seeking missile. And he goes and lights people up and he makes plays. And the 49ers definitely need that on the back end.
Yeah, Joe followed up that question by saying, yeah, I understand. Thanks for the answer. I was worried about his energy level from last season. It never seemed to me like he was happy to be here. I mean, it sounds like he's cool with everything. I mean, he has his contract. He has been in the building. He's, by all accounts, he's been on the sideline, coaching up receivers, giving encouragement, giving tips, things like that. Yesterday, he was running routes kind of against air, when some of the receivers would be running their routes. He'd be out beside, not terribly far away, running the same kind of route. And so to me, it seems like his attitude right now is in the right place.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the 49ers had energy problems last year. for different reasons.
sure.
I mean, some of them were feeling a Super Bowl hangover. Travarius Ward had personal things going on, but also, the contract situation, he said, was a little bit of a problem for him. So it's not just Ayuk, who I do believe, like Joe said, the energy was different last year. I think the 49ers have turned the page on that. And I think Brandon Ayuk has turned the page on that too. Whatever offseason drama they had before, it hasn't carried over. This is a different unit, and training camp does feel different for the 49ers players. I think a lot of that is some of the veterans are breathing again. And I think the young players have kind of infused an enthusiasm in a competition. And it probably goes a long way that Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer are energy guys as well. That kind of permeates through the team. And I think you're feeling that at training camp. And I think the players' attitudes are definitely further along than they were last year.
Yeah, everybody that I've heard from in the media are talking about a different vibe this year. Fans that have been there have even mentioned that they can sense the same thing, that the team just looks and feels different than it did a year ago. So that's a positive thing. You talked about Jair Brown, with waiting for Mustafa to return, and we don't know what that starting safety role setup is going to look like when Mustafa returns. But Filthy Casual asked, how's Jair Brown doing at safety? So how is he look? Because as a rookie, he looked good. Last year, he was not good. How are you seeing him so far during training camp?
Yeah, I think he's looked okay. I think that there's definitely some areas of his game he's working on. It's not like he's got this thing all figured out. He's got it hemmed up that he's going to be, the starting safety out there next to Jason Pennick or anything like that. But we are seeing a different Jair Brown than we saw last year. There's less of these coverage busts down the field that are because of Jair Brown in training camp. And I felt like communication was a little bit of an issue for Jair Brown. He came in as kind of the elder statesman with the Talanoa Hufanga not being on the field, Tashawn Gibson not being in the locker room, and he kind of took over that young room last year. And George Odom was pretty much the only vet besides him. And he was really tasked with communicating to the entire secondary. And I thought they put a lot on him. And I think that it's going to be a lot simpler now that he's not going to be expected to do that. They can put that on other players, and other players have stepped up in the secondary around him. And they need to not make him a focal point of being a leader. He needs to kind of just focus on his game. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Now, when they get into the joint practices, when they get into preseason, that's when we'll get to see if the tackling has figured itself out. 49ers don't bring guys to the ground, so we haven't really seen that yet. That's an element of the game he's got to get down. But I think overall it's looked like a more confident, more comfortable Jair Brown. I think that's all you can ask for so far in training camp. There's good plays, there's bad plays, but right now there's more good plays than bad. And I think that's a good sign for him as he kind of ramps up towards the season.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. There's a couple of questions here that I want to come back to in the chat, but one's from the 49ers 2025, and the other is from Reese. So I'll get back to those if you get a chance to star those for me. Sounds like Brant Boyer is teaching a lot on attention to details. I don't remember who it was that I heard from, but they heard him talking to a special teams guys about paying really, really close attention to details. And that was really encouraging to me, because I don't think that that's something that especially from a special team standpoint, we've heard. I think that we all know that Kyle Shanahan is very detail oriented and wants his guys paying special attention to details, because really your greatest success, we heard about this in the Walsh days, with Montana, with Young, with Seifert and that defense, is they paid really close attention to the small details, and that the small details became big on game days. And so to me, this was really encouraging. I expect this special teams unit to be much, much improved. What have you seen there? And had you heard about his focus on paying closer attention to the fine details?
Yeah, that's the good part of coaching is when you pay attention to the small details. When you're focused in on every little aspect, that's what gives you an advantage, right? When you can pay attention to every element, it gives you an advantage over your opponent, but also it just makes sure you do things right. I will say that Brant Boyer's special teams practices are completely different from what we've seen over the last couple of years with Brian Schneider. It is just completely different. The drills they're doing are different. The way they're executing those drills are different. The coaching the players are receiving is more hands-on. That doesn't surprise me with Brant Boyer's intensity and the fact that he's made it through so many different regimes in New York. But I think it was nice to see because everyone knows that if this 49ers special teams unit can do a good job, that is going to improve this team so much. And I think Brant Boyer is the perfect guy for the job. The focus is there. I've seen him coaching up Marquis Siegel one-on-one. They are doing everything they can. And I think that that's a good way to look at it. If you do everything and you pay attention to everything, you're going to put yourself in a situation to be successful. And I love that because one thing that frustrated everyone about Brian Schneider was you would see someone make a mistake and he wouldn't even talk to them. No one would coach that guy up. That doesn't happen anymore. You make a mistake on the 49ers practice field right now, you are getting coached up and you're getting coached up quickly. Somebody is running up to you to let you know what you need to do to be better the next rep. And that's how you have to coach. And I think it's a stark comparison between Brant Boyer and Brian Schneider.
Have you seen who's returning kicks and punts yet?
Yeah, so far I seen they did the punt return. I got to watch. It was Junior Bergen, it was Jordan Watkins, and it was Ricky Pearsall. And I would say that the most comfortable catching the ball is always Ricky Pearsall, but I don't think they want him returning punts. So yeah. Watkins and Bergen right now are kind of in the competition. Watkins looks super comfortable doing it as well. So a couple of rookies and Ricky Pearsall, and I'm sure Jacob Cowing, when he comes back, he'll be in the mix as well. And then as far as kick return, I haven't seen it personally, what they're doing with that, and maybe they're waiting a little bit to kind of go through that. They've been working on the blocking and some of that element and not so much the return yet.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Watkins, and Michael in the chat asks, any chance Jordan Watkins starts faster than expected as a rookie wide receiver? We know that Kyle Shanahan hates rookies, but if they're putting him back there to return punts, I don't know. If Bergen doesn't make the roster, if Watkins is somebody that can be reliable and do some things back there, then maybe he does start faster because he's making the team. And I mean, we know that he's making the team, but Bergen, I think, is the one that we've been thinking is going to make it as the punt returner. But if he doesn't, if Watkins is that guy, then maybe he does get in there on offense more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Bergen has to separate himself as a punt kick returner to make this team. He has to go out there and show that he's going to be a game changer to be able to make this roster. Jordan Watkins doing well as a kick or punt returner is not good for Junior Bergen because then he's a little bit less necessary, right? You don't really have to have him on the roster because he's not doing as many things on offense as Watkins. And I think Watkins does look more comfortable than I've seen a lot of rookies look through the last several years at training camp. When I go out there, usually looks like they're a little bit underwater. So far, he doesn't appear to look underwater. He kind of looks like he knows what he's doing. And maybe that's because they're in install. They did install in rookie minicamp and OTAs, and they've really gotten it to where these guys are comfortable with the early portions. When it gets a little bit more difficult is when Kyle throws an entire game plan at them and they've got to figure it all out week to week and everything changes. Basically 17 different offensive schemes as they go through the season. But I think that he's put himself in a position where, yeah, we can expect him to go make some plays. And it was just a couple years ago, Ronnie Bell made some plays as a rookie. So it's not out of the question that a guy can do it. And why not Jordan Watkins? I think the 49ers would love to have him make some plays for them as a rookie.
All right, let's get to some under the radar guys that I've heard a lot about so far. and this isn't just, hey, this guy made a play. This is where I've heard multiple things about these guys, and then I want to get your thoughts on them. I think I sent you this list, so hopefully you have that because you're not going to be able to remember. Braden Willis is one, Jacob Robinson, Richie Grant, Dallas Flowers, Luke Gifford, Russell Gage, which you already had mentioned, So let me back up. Braden Willis. I've heard more about him as a receiver than in previous seasons. What have you seen or heard regarding Braden Willis?
Yeah, I think Braden Willis going into training camp, I thought he was behind Ross Dwelley as tight end 3. I think that he's probably up there or past Ross Dwelley right now as tight end 3 with the way that he's been able to catch the football. They're pretty equivalent when it comes to blocking. So I think Braden Willis has put himself in the mix to make this team, but I still hold the same thoughts I had before training camp that I'm not sure I'm sold on any of the guys who would be tight end 3 right now. I think Braden Willis and Mason Pline have made the biggest jumps from last year to this year, but is that enough? And I think that's one of the things the 49ers are trying to figure out here is, but yeah, Braden Willis does look better.
All right, the next one I mentioned was Jacob Robinson. Joe asked in the chat, does Jacob Robinson look like he can make the 53? I hear that this guy just keeps making plays.
He does. He's making a lot of plays. I think the biggest question mark for him is going to be, how many cornerbacks do the 49ers ultimately keep? If they keep 5, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for him to make this team. If they keep 6, there's a chance. Right now, they're giving Darrell Luter Jr. a opportunity, right? They started him yesterday with Dallas Flowers. Some of it injuries kind of providing opportunity. But that's the one thing. When you're talking about Darrell Luter Jr., he's not really standing out. Right. Dallas Flowers has stood out. Jacob Robinson stood out. Upton Stout. You see the young guys, even Derek Canteens made some plays. Darrell Luter Jr., not so much. And so I think that that's one of the things that I'm the most interested to see is what's up with Darrell Luter Jr. And that might kind of determine if Jacob Robinson makes the team. But he is a lot of fun. He is playing really hard, and he's making some pass deflections. He's in the mix. I don't know if he ultimately makes it, but he's right there. If he continues to have a really good training camp and a good preseason, it might be one of those opportunities where it's like, we have to keep him because if not, he'll go somewhere else and he'll be a player that makes plays. The one thing about him though, is he is small. I mean, he is skinny still, and I know he put on like 10 pounds, but that is one thing. His size, when you're talking about, the overall build is a little bit of a problem. I want to see how he holds up when we get into run defense. How's he looking in the preseason coming up and setting the edge in the run? That'll be something I'm interested in.
You mentioned Dallas Flowers. This was somebody that I had no clue who he was a few weeks ago, and but now I'm hearing his name a lot.
Yeah, Dallas Flowers has been one of my guys that I've been talking up for like the last 5 weeks or so because I watched film of him playing with the Colts with Gus Bradley, and I said, hey, what's up with this guy? And looking him up a little bit more evaluation, he started for the Indianapolis Colts coming out of training camp. He played 4 games in 2023, was doing a pretty good job, hadn't given up a touchdown. Then he got injured and injured his Achilles. Last year, Gus Bradley thought he was going to be a starter for the Colts again. He wasn't back all the way. He had lost a step, tried to catch on with Tampa Bay. It didn't work out well there. Now we're almost 2 years removed, right? We're about 18 months removed from him having that Achilles injury. And now there's a chance that Dallas Flowers could make this team. He's long. He's got a really good feel for zone coverage. He makes plays where he goes up and he knocks balls away that should be completions. So I think that he's in the mix to make this team. And a little spoiler, when I did my pre-training camp 53-man roster prediction over on Patreon, I did have Dallas Flowers making this football team. Nice. I just think he's got the ability to do it. And the Gus Bradley connection kind of helped me along the way.
Wow. Okay. I've heard some people say that they believe that Richie Grant will be one of the starters at safety until Malik Mustafa returns. Do you agree? And what have you seen from Richie Grant?
I think Richie Grant's in the mix right now. I think him and Jair Brown are competing to see who's going to play next to Jason Pinnock. I think Jason Pinnock is the guy right now they feel the most comfortable with at safety. I think he's the guy they sent to the podium, right? He's the guy that they're comfortable with. And so I think it's going to be him. But after that, I do think Jair Brown's ahead of Richie Grant. If I had to tell you right now, I would say Jair Brown starts over Grant to start the season. But Richie's out there and he's making some plays and he's working himself in. I think he's a consistent player. It's just, can he overtake Jair Brown? I'm not sure. Jair would have to stumble. And right now he hasn't stumbled. He's been more consistent than I think we expected him to be. So I still think Jair's ahead. But yeah, Richie Grant's going to be a nice depth piece for the 49ers all year. And who knows, maybe he will make plays and overtake Jair Brown. But right now I got Jair ahead of him.
Yeah, I think that I really agree. I think that Jair Brown would really have to stumble to miss out on this. Russell Gage is the other one. I think weeks ago we were saying that he wasn't going to make the team, but now it sounds like he is going to make the team.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that Russell Gage makes this team. And we'll see if the 49ers pull some roster gymnastics, right? He's a vested veteran. They could cut him and he could go to the practice squad. They could elevate him for week 1 and 2, but they might need him. And Russell Gage has definitely been one of those guys that's been consistent. If there was going to be a veteran right now between him and St. Brown and Hodgins, I think that they would want Russell Gage. He knows how to operate in the red zone. He could score touchdowns. You go watch what he did with Tom Brady in Tampa, the way he was able to kind of get open and find these little holes. I think it's a comfort for Brock Purdy and a guy that could make plays with Brock Purdy. So, yeah, I think Russell Gage is right now on target to make this 49ers 53 or some sort of shenanigan where he's not on the team initially, but they bring him back once the season starts.
Real quick, what are your thoughts on the 49ers signing Eli Apple?
I think it was a depth signing. You know, I know they had injuries at the position. One thing I do like about Eli Apple is he fits the scheme and what they want to run. His length is something I like, and he does good in coverage. He was good with the Bengals. Last year he came on with the Chargers, and he was doing pretty well there until he suffered an injury. That's been kind of the bugaboo for Eli Apple, has been injuries. The other thing is he's not great at stopping the run, so that's a concern. But overall, I mean, this is kind of like having Rock Ya-Sin last year. That guy kind of towards the back of the depth chart. You don't know if they're going to make it, but they add some stability where you know you could count on them to go compete and make a play if you need it. And so I think Eli Apple comes in kind of in that Rock Ya-Sin type role. We'll see if he can make it. I think it'll be tough. A lot of young players are really been stepping up.
Real quick, this question from Siggy's Light. I hear Moss is really standing up. I think he's talking about Drew Moss. Does he make the 53?
I think it's going to be very hard for Drew Moss to make this 53-man roster. When you talk about the players that the 49ers have on the interior part of the offensive line, I've seen Moss struggle a little bit in the one-on-ones. You know, he was struggling with CJ West. I think that there's a little bit of some technique flaws with him. And I think guys like Zach Johnson, who's playing right guard right now, has looked better than Moss. But, I mean, he's a young guy, right? He's a developmental guy. I think if I had to guess, Moss is a guy they put on the practice squad. I don't think he's going to impress enough that another team's going to want to take a swing at him and put him on their active 53-man roster for the season. I think that he could go to the 49ers practice squad and they could continue to develop him. And maybe next year, you know, he's a guy that could come in and compete because I do think he has some skills. It's not there yet.
All right, back to these starred questions. The 49ers 2025, are you concerned about the O-line depth? Yes, we have discussed that we're pretty good with the starters. I mean, we don't entirely know. I think we were talking Ben Bartch would be the left guard. And so I think that we've been feeling pretty good about the starters, but the depth behind them is a little scary.
Yeah, I feel a little bit more comfortable now that I've seen Nick Zakelj kind of operating as a starting left guard, that if Ben Bartch could come back and beat him out, you would feel really good about, you know, the depth there. Because I think Zakelj has now proven he can be a solid depth piece. And right now, he's not been a huge concern for the 49ers at left guard. He's not getting out there, you know, and really struggling. And one of the things he's really good at is pass protection. When it comes to run blocking, that's my biggest concern for Zakelj. But overall, you look at Spencer Burford, he's been doing okay. You know, you got him also. So they do have some depth at certain positions. I think Zach Johnson's played better than I anticipated. Matt Hennessy's been playing really good as the backup center. I think he could have some run at guard. So I'm not overly concerned about the depth. I think they actually have a lot of internal depth. I think when it gets a lot better is when we see what Andre Dillard is going to be when he comes back from injury. I think he would really stabilize this team because him and Spencer Burford not just play tackle, but also play guard as well. You got some real versatile pieces, but I think they need Dillard to kind of stabilize tackle. I'm not sold on Austin Pleasance as a backup offensive tackle. And I think if he comes in and he's consistent, I think I'll feel even better about the offensive depth at the position. But we need Barch back. We need Dillard back to kind of get the full round offensive line together.
This last one from Reese. Ant, what is your biggest group of concerns coming from and why? So I think he's asking your biggest, which position group you're most concerned about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we came in, it was a depth at cornerback was a concern, safety, and I'll probably still land on safety right now because we haven't seen it, and they've got like a lot of makeshift guys together, right? We know they're high on Pennick. He played for Robert Saleh, so they understand who he is, but we don't really know if Jair Brown is going to take another step forward, right? Is this going to be the guy that we saw at the end of the Steve Wilkes run here in San Francisco, that rookie year where he was making plays? Or is this going to be what we saw last year where it was not good? And I think that those question marks are still there. And I like I said, I like Richie Grant, but he hasn't proven to be a starter in this league yet. And you're counting on him to potentially compete. Marquise Siegel has moments where he looks really good. And so I think eventually he's going to be a star. But with Malik out, I think there are concerns with safety. That's probably my biggest concern, even though we have, I don't know how many injuries at wide receiver. I'm still less concerned about wide receiver than I am about safety.
Wow, that's surprising. I thought that you might go wide receiver, but so now that gives me something else to worry about. Thank you for that. Any last thing that's jumped out to you when you were there that you want to bring to our attention before we take off?
I would say that the one thing that I've noticed is the competition level from offense and defense is back. These guys are out there competing, and we're going to hear offense wins one day, defense wins one day, back and forth, because these guys are competing. And don't get overly concerned about when offensive players win with verticals. Don't worry about the defensive players getting burned. Sometimes they're putting those guys in some tough situations on purpose. And so don't worry about stats. Coaches do not care about stats at training camp. What they care about is if you're doing the right things. And that's what they're going to coach you up on. Make mistakes at practice. That's what I'm seeing right now. But overall, I thought if we didn't have as many of the penalties and the lack of execution things that we've had in years past, it looks a lot cleaner, more attention to detail. You brought that up with Boyer. I think that's kind of all throughout the 49ers team. And guys, we have ourselves a top 10 quarterback in Brock Purdy. The way he runs this offense, it's phenomenal. And Christian McCaffrey's back. He is back. And that's one thing that I think is going to help this team a lot in 2025.
Yeah, and he made a really, really good catch a couple of days ago. Yeah, and don't worry about, some like to report on quarterback stats, that he was 8 of 13 today. Who cares? Like he may be trying something. It's kind of like a pitcher in spring training who is maybe trying out a new pitch. And so sometimes quarterbacks do things like that. Sometimes they're just trying to figure out, hey, can I fit something in this tight window? Or maybe they're just messing, like they're doing different things offensively, whether they're trying to experiment or they're putting new things in. I don't worry much about that. If he throws an interception, who cares? I mean, I just don't pay any attention to that stuff. So don't get worked up if Brock Purdy has a bad day, or if he has a brilliant day, or if Mac Jones has looked better than Brock Purdy so far. Don't worry about that. Mac Jones is not better than Brock Purdy, despite the guy who on X yesterday told me, mark my words, Brock Purdy will be replaced by Mac Jones by midseason. It's not happening. I'm telling you, it's not.
I would bet a lot of money on that not happening. A lot of money.
Yeah, and I'm not anti Mac Jones. I want him to do well, but he's not beating out Brock Purdy. So Thanks everybody for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe both channels. It really helps us out. Make sure you like the videos, tell your friends and family, and then print the screen and put our pictures on your wall. just to brighten your day. It's gonna keep the rats away. It's gonna do all kinds of things like that. It's gonna make life a little better for you. But hey, we do appreciate it. We know that you could have spent your time doing something else, but you chose to hang out with us for a bit, and we appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.